Welcome to Voyage, the first podcast on crypto's real-world use cases, where you can also discover crypto's global impact one region at a time. Bon voyage!
I think Thailand in general, even before COVID times, was always poisoned by political turmoil, which has arguably held the country back by decades, if not even longer time periods. So that it was one of the struggles which our country has been facing so far, if I'm being honest. From what we have seen so far, the viewpoint towards crypto tends to be more on the positive side, with more positive crypto regulations coming forward, with the ETF being approved. And when it comes to rewards, it might be incremental for example, people living in the Western Hemisphere, but they're so significant for local residents here in Southeast Asia, right? And one of the psychological effects, which is prevalent in a lot of Thais, is they feel good if they're sort of the early adopters to TikTok, to all these new upcoming apps. They feel like they're part of the cool kids club. I think for Thailand, it's still very much a localized country. There's a lot of nuances you have to be mindful of when it comes to culture, regulations, and certain social values. Thai people are still receptive of gambling, albeit we are inherently degens and gamblers. But there's balances in life, right? Where you have sort of the light, which is Buddhism, and you have sort of the fun in life, which is sort of speculation, gambling, wealth creation, if that makes sense. So two kind of comes in hand. And I think at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? We're so open to new experiences. We're open to meeting new people, embracing new cultures, and that is a beauty of the country in its own way.
Hi, Nai. Welcome to Voyage. I'm super excited about this episode because we are featuring one of the best builder in Thailand, and also Thailand is definitely one of my favorite countries in the world. Really excited to have a deep dive into what is life like in Thailand, how's the economy doing, how's the crypto market in Thailand right now. I think Thailand is a very, very interesting market because one, DefCon is happening in Bangkok this year. The recording time of this podcast is October 1st, but a lot of people is already in Thailand, I think in Chiang Mai. And then also, besides the food, the culture and everything people love about Thailand, Thailand is actually one of the most crypto-friendly countries in the world. I'm super happy to have Nai here. We met at DefCon last year in Istanbul.
Yeah, that is correct. In Istanbul, I think it was November last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that you guys run some really, really cool workshops, and you're doing a lot of educational stuff for crypto in Thailand. And I think you also have the incubator and VC of yourself, right?
Yes, that is correct. So should we do a quick intro before we get started?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. So just a quick intro for the audiences out there. Hi, my name's Nine. I'm the founder of Symmetry and Thai Belt. And as Jojo mentioned, Thai Belt is basically Thailand's nonprofit builder community. So we help support builders, anything from doing meetups, workshops, education, and all that stuff, just to help support and provide more educational resources for builders, but at the same time, host a safe environment to support fellow founders whenever they're going through troubles or they're going to each an obstacle, and provide this safe space where founders can actually feel at home, right? And then I'm also the founder of Symmetry, which, as Jojo mentioned earlier, an incubator / ecosystem builder / venture fund, where we help support these builders once they do want to turn ideas into actual venture backable startups. That's when we come in to help support. And on the other hand, we also help support ecosystems and chains like Scroll, and among others, to help them onboard more users and builders from Thailand. So that's essentially what I do. And some quick background: when I first entered crypto, I noticed that obviously I was one of the people who entered because of the degeneracy and the speculative nature of it. I'm not gonna lie, but that was the main attraction of what actually initially drew me to crypto. But the longer have gone down to this rabbit hole, I start to realize that there's a lot of meaningful products that can be built, and that's when I began the rabbit hole of going into transitioning from an investor to a more builder role. And what I've noticed from the outset is that there wasn't a central community builders and founders who can actually come and support each other, like what you see in the States and both Web 2 and Web 3, for example, right? We have in Thailand localized community of traders, whether they're on-chain degens, like exchange traders, or even NFT collectors. They would form their own Discord groups and enclaves on Discord, Telegram, Twitter, and whatnot. But there wasn't a central group or a central community where founders and builders can come together to discuss more builder related topics. So that became a sort of small / informal Discord chat, and then we kind of grew into like a proper community. I think the transition was really natural in the sense that there was only so many things that a nonprofit can do, right? Obviously, I want to be able to support all the fellow Thai builders, both local Thai builders, but also expats who are living in Thailand, which we'll touch on, which is an interesting dynamic to see this growing bunch of expat builders coming into the country. Yeah, going back to that topic, I think we're in a position where we want to be able to support builders, but at the same time, there's only so much a nonprofit can do. So Symmetry was born out of that ambition where we want to actually take this to the next level. We want to actually be able to support builders when we can and where we can.
Awesome. And I guess a little bit on like the personal background. Did you grow up in Thailand? And I know you live in Thailand right now, but did you grow up there, go to school there, and everything?
Yeah, I actually go to school up to when I was in secondary school, and I went to university in the UK. I went to the University of Exeter. So it's a small town in the southwest of the UK, and England, quite a nice student city. So similar vibes to what you see in Pattaya or Hua Hin in Thailand, with a mixture of the vibes that you see in Chiang Mai. So it's really a nice city, and I think it helps expose me to sort of a new culture, if you will, comparing to like the Thai culture I've been initially immersed to when I was young. So pretty interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, for sure. And when did you come back to Thailand?
Yeah, like straight after uni. So that was when like COVID hit at first. So that I came back and then was working at a consulting firm prior to joining Web3, and then my friends invited me, hey, come look at crypto, look at all these investments that are going up, like turbo mode. So I was initially attracted by that, of course. So I'm guilty of that, but then I think I'm quite grateful of the speculative nature which drew me into crypto, and then what made me stay was the potential products that we are thinking of building and how it could actually impact and help elevate local residents and citizens here in Thailand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I entered crypto probably around the same time with you. During COVID, I was in Phuket, and then also I was in the other part of Southeast Asia for a little bit, and I was seeing some of my friends playing Axie Infinity, and that was when I could actually visualize crypto. Because before you always hear about Bitcoin, Ethereum, but you never like really visualize it. So that was like my first experience of crypto. But again, the speculating nature as well. So you mentioned that, you came back to Thailand, around COVID time. So you probably have some sense of Thailand as a whole, as a country that's shifting in economy, and then also some of the consumer behaviors, pre-COVID and post-COVID. So I was doing some research on the economy of Thailand. Right now, there are some problems that the Thai economy is facing that, you guys probably have no control over and cannot fix. I think one of the problem is the global demand for Thai goods and services is weak. I know that pre-COVID, you guys probably have, a decade of solid growth. Can you kind of give us a little background on what is happening in Thailand right now? How is the economy going, and how does that affect people's life?
I think Thailand in general, even before COVID times, was always poisoned by political turmoil, which has arguably held the country back by decades, if not even longer time periods. So that it was one of the struggles which our country has been facing so far, if I'm being honest. I think in general, the country has a lot of good infrastructure. All the building blocks are there. The infrastructure, resources, the human manpower, the resources to be able to actually garner and able to actually develop and push forward as a country. But what has been holding the country back was more of a general lack of direction, which is largely driven by political uncertainty with elections, corruption, coups and stuff, and it has hindered like Thailand's growth. Although that has sort of subsided in the recent years, where all the political situation has clarified up, and there's more certainty with that. And I think you see confidence in investors being restored by the fact that our currency has been appreciating rapidly during the past couple of weeks. I think that has been sort of a proxy to investor confidence. But at the same time, I think the trade-off to that is it has hindered our competitiveness to certain export products, right? And like Thailand by far has been an export country, and it also has negatively affected the tourism industry, which is one of the major industries within Thailand. So those are the two key trade-offs that the country is facing right now, like restoring investor confidence while still maintaining competitiveness in key industries, whether it's agriculture exports or industrial manufacturing goods, as well as tourism.
I think under my impression, when I was in Thailand, this might be really ignorant, but just by reading some research, I think a lot of the impression people have is I think Thailand is still a very service, tourism, and also agricultural driven country. So is Thailand slowly moving into or transitioning into a more tech-driven country?
I think that's the ideal objective. I think we are on track towards being a more tech-driven country, as you put it, but there's still a lot of way we have to make to actually be a tech-driven country, as you said, right? I think right now Thailand is still very much agricultural focused, with a strong transition towards more industrialization, whether it's in manufacturing. We see all these car manufacturers or even electrical manufacturing plants being set up in Thailand, which I think helps to put signals that, hey, these different brands like Tesla and whatnot are setting up manufacturing plants for Asia, and Thailand. I think it speaks volumes about not only how competitive our labor and our capabilities are, but also in terms of cost as well. But I think that being said, the majority of the citizens here in Thailand are still in agriculture, either upstream in farming or either in midstream in processing or even downstream and like trading and sales. I think overall there's also a lot of headway with tourism, given the inbounds actually coming from China and India. I think these are the two main drivers of tourists within Thailand at the moment. And I think Russia is around third, I would say. Not too sure if that's the correct assessment, but that's based on the personal experience. So I think that has also driven a lot of demand when it comes to more service-oriented industries, whether it's tourism, medical tourism, and the fact that some of these citizens or some of the tourists which choose to travel to Thailand for medical reasons is also a big factor right now. It's also a very much like the tailwind towards the tourism industry as well.
And then when I'm thinking about a feature of a country or how the country is doing, you really want to look at the young people that just freshly graduated from college. I like observing what they're thinking and doing. Currently, what are some sectors or industries that young people really want to work in? What are the popular ones?
Generally, the pattern is most Thai citizens want to work within downtown Bangkok, which is the de facto place they want to work in. And the companies on top of their list are either multinationals or large Thai corporates, like large listed Thai corporates in the Thai local stock exchange. So these companies signal job security. So it's a place where you can actually have and secure job security for, if not, it could also be the office of your dreams. You would just stay there for decades, even for the rest of your life. I think some of them maintain or desire that level of job security. So that's why they seek out these opportunities. But at the same time, there's also people who are more ambitious, people who are actually looking to move to multinationals and look for opportunities abroad. I think that still represents a small, albeit growing segment, which signals the country's growing competitiveness. But at the same time, there's the bulk of the majority of the country are still, and they're not as fluent in English. So I think the pool of opportunities that they are exposed to is quite limited. And therefore, the companies and the sectors that are on top of the list right now are mostly like local Thai companies, which ranges from anything from tech to consumer goods, manufacturing, and whatnot. So there isn't a specific sector per se, but I think the theme in general towards the cream of the crop is obviously tech. And within that, you'll have the two obvious headliners, which is AI and blockchain. Albeit AI is a bit more popular right now, given that there's like a lot of companies who are dabbling in AI in Thailand at the moment. So for a fresh graduate or even a university student who is currently making a decision whether to go down the AI rabbit hole versus crypto, like for an employee and in terms of job progression, like pathways, it does make sense for them to go down AI and not blockchain at the moment, unfortunately. So I think that's the dynamic. But obviously, the speculative nature and also the state of the market does help bring more positive sentiments toward crypto. I'm not too sure if that's for good or bad reasons, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think we just need another bull market, maybe.
Yeah, we do. We do. I think for better or worse, the bull market does bring a lot of speculators, but it also brings a lot of talent into the industry. So I
Mm.
think there's an interesting dynamic where the bull market as sort of an acquisition phase of talent into the industry. And then what we have to do is we actually have to retain this talent by offering the opportunities, offering the progression to see, hey, if you are actually diving down to this rabbit hole, which is blockchain and Web3, there's opportunities you can pursue. What either you can become a founder, either you can also work as a developer in Web3, or you can also be an operator in a non-tech role. Like I think a lot of people have misconceptions where if you want to work in this particular industry, you have to be technically like aligned, or you have to actually be technical in terms of your skill set, right? Which is completely untrue. You can be a marketing guy, you can be BD, you can do growth, you can do all these other occupations, which fills in the biggest piece of the puzzle, which forms a complete Web3 company.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that's what you guys are, very passionate about, right? So you have the builder community, which you can educate people on what's going on in the crypto market, what is blockchain, and then you can also provide them or guide these builders with some cool ideas to work on, which long term wise, it's really healthy for the industry, something that I really respect. To further understand a little bit about the government and the relationship between the government and the people. So the reason why I ask is because in previous episodes, in some emerging markets where crypto is not, I wouldn't say very friendly, but crypto has a very wide adoption, is when people have distrust with the government or the financial institutions. So what is trust between the Thai government and the Thai people? And then also, how is the financial accessibility for normal Thai people?
I think there's two factors which plays into how open Thai people are to crypto, and one of them is the fact that there's a lack of faith when it comes to the government and overall country direction which the country is headed. So I think there's this mindset among Thais that we're sort of fed up with the current regime, with all the political turmoil and all the uncertainty of the leadership of the country since the beginning of time.
Mm.
So there's this sort of mindset that everyone has to fend for themselves. And I think it's more that, hey, if you're able to actually look out for opportunities, then you should be able to do that by yourself. And we don't, like, taking an analogy of like America, US, right? There's this ideal of the American dream, right? Where you can actually pursue all these opportunities. It's the land of opportunities and freedom and all that. But I don't think there's such mindsets or ideals being instilled in among Thais. So I think what is lacking right now is the fact that people are not have this sort of level of distrust among the government and the people higher up in the country, so that they're trying to look out for new opportunities. Couple that with higher level of adoption in new technologies. I think Thai people are really open to try out new apps, whether it's Web2 or Web3. I think we're basically like technically curious. We just want to try out new stuff and we want to be early adopters, right? And one of the psychological effects, which is prevalent in a lot of Thais, is they feel good if they're sort of the early adopters to TikTok, to all these new upcoming apps. They feel like they're part of the cool kids club, if you will. So I think that plays into the psychology where a lot of Thai builders and or even Thai consumers in general are willing to try out these apps, and crypto is no exception. So that's why we see a lot of adoption, and that's why we see a lot of Thai builders or Thai users coming in to try out new applications in both Web2 and Web3, and they're willing to jump down head first and try and explore what's up. And if turns out good, then so be it. And that's the mindset right now.
Yeah, in my impression, I think most of the Thai people that I met are very passionate, very welcoming, very open-minded. That's also one of the great things about Thai culture as well. Okay, so what is the preferred way for you guys to grow wealth? Is it very conservative, deposited in banks, or is it more like buy stocks or real estate? What are some of the popular way or the consensus for people in Thailand?
I think it's generally similar to other countries out there, as you might have expected. Like there's a range of investments, and obviously what comes with that is the risk appetite of each particular investment vehicle, right? So from real estate down to crypto, even FX. So mostly investors in general are looking at real estate as sort of the safe bet with gold, and then as they move along the risk spectrum from local Thai stocks to global stocks to like emerging countries, like investing in emerging countries, for example, Vietnam or China, and then potentially crypto or even FX, right? And that's basically the spectrum of what people are investing in. Like real estate and gold could be one of the de facto safe investments, right? The safe haven of your wealth in terms of wealth preservation. But when it comes to wealth creation, not too sure. Some people associate that with a bit of gambling. For better or worse, I think unfortunately some people are unable to tell the difference between wealth creation and gambling, unfortunately. So that's why there's a lot of speculative demand when it comes to crypto and FX in general in Thailand. So people are willing to actually jump into crypto because they see this instrument, this market as sort of the rapid path towards wealth creation. And in the previous like decades, and so that was where the Thai local stock market served that purpose, right? But there were multiple cases of fraud as well as market manipulation. So the general sentiment around local Thai investors is that they would rather leapfrog and invest into global assets where they have sort of a level playing field like crypto. They have tremendous upside. They see all these new opportunities coming up. And I think that's more lucrative from their point of view rather than to invest in local Thai equities.
I see. That also play into a factor of, the distrust between the people and the government and the financial institutions, right?
Yes, it is. It is because when you look at the entire landscape of Thailand, it's more often than not driven by societal and political factors, and that's largely driven by the background of how people grew up with all this political turmoil. Even when my parents were young, there was a lot of history in Thailand and how these different regimes come to play, they come to power, then they're replaced by other regimes, and the cycle kind of repeats. So I think in general that fosters a cycle of distrust and to a certain extent more independence within the people. So that's why like I think when it comes to culture, it helps foster this culture. Hey, we're as local Thais, as like typical like Joes out there, like we should be able to help each other and support each other. And I think that's part of the reason why Thai people are so welcoming and supportive because we have to be, right? We have to be helping each other to get through this together as commoners. So and then that's part of the reason that Thai people has always been so welcoming and so friendly towards not only local people, but also expat and international folks coming in.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good thing. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy Thailand a lot during DevCon as well. Expanding the topic to Web3 and crypto a little bit more. This year, Thailand passed the first Bitcoin ETF. I think you guys have some sort of visa that's really welcoming expats, nomads.
Yeah.
And then it's just like in general, the government is very welcoming crypto. Can you kind of elaborate on that for us? How is the policy towards crypto? How's the sentiment towards crypto right now?
So sentiment and for crypto, especially in the public sector, has tremendously improved simply because of the fact that there has been a change in government most recently in the past, like in the previous year, as well as a change in the share of the SEC of Thailand. And I think from what we have seen so far, the viewpoint towards crypto tends to be more on the positive side, with more positive crypto regulations coming forward, with the ETF being approved, as you mentioned, and a lot of like encouragement and activity and sandboxes being set up by the Bank of Thailand, also the SCC of Thailand, to support new potential initiatives going forward. So I think there's a lot of positives that we see right now. Obviously, there's more room to grow to support like app builders or people who are building more Web3 native projects. But I think it's all like baby steps, right? We just have to take it by step and see how it goes. And we're on a positive path towards development, and we just have to keep building on this momentum and propel Thailand to sort of a global hub for crypto, or at the very least like a regional one to support not only Thai builders but also expat builders who are coming in to visit the country, even temporarily during DefCon, right? I think this is a great opportunity for us to come together as a country, showcase what we're made of, and to help bring in all these international folks and see what we can actually achieve together.
Got it. Yeah, and then I think also when you mentioned there is generally the distress and the political turmoil before in Thailand. So do you see a lot of like just like giving the background of how people grew up in Thailand, and also when they have the idea or interest when they transition to crypto or Web3, do you, I guess, as a builder yourself, see any interesting or use cases that are unique to Thailand right now?
Yeah, I think what is particularly interesting that I'm personally looking at right now is not necessarily games, but more like gamification. So if you look at Southeast Asia as a region as a whole, right, going back to the previous bull market, visiting what you mentioned, Axie Infinity, I think that actually plays well into my thesis here that a lot like when it comes to rewards, like rewards are so significant. It might be incremental for example, people living in the Western Hemisphere, but they're so significant for like local residents here in Southeast Asia, right? Which is why the threshold towards incentivizing a certain behavior of like one particular person is so low. Given if I say if you give a person, hey, if you sign up to this app, you get $10, it might not mean much in other countries, like other Western European countries, but in like local Southeast Asian countries, it does actually move the needle for people, right? So that's why there's a lot of signups and activity when it comes to these pay-to-earn games. But in general, I think what we can also extrapolate from that, which is like coming back to my thesis, is that it's not just games, but more like gamification and how we can incentivize user behavior, right? And what we have yet to see is actual consumer super app coming out of Southeast Asia. People always spoke about Asia being the consumer market. We have the largest number of users, not only in terms of Southeast Asia, but also APAC in general. But we have yet to see a consumer app of that magnitude and scale. And I think what could potentially be tackled is gamification and how we can reward and incentivize behavior in real life while still utilizing like Web3 rails. For example, like if you go into different brands and you like, for example, if you order like merchandises from Shopee and all these online like shopping platforms, there's these mini games or rewarding programs that you can actually get and achieve and progress, right? But these programs are siloed. But what if like Web3 allow us to connect and intertwine all these reward programs and incentives together and become sort of a encompassing questing platform of sorts, then that could potentially be interesting. And it doesn't have to be indirectly interacting with Web3 at all. I think we can just hide it in the backstage and just let people do their own thing, right? Yeah. That's the beauty of like abstraction. So I think that's where I'm personally bullish on, like having this sort of consumer super app to be able to tap into this huge, gigantic market of consumers who are willing to adopt, who are willing to actually try out new apps, try out new products, not even in like technically, but also physically as well. And the threshold to adoption or threshold to incentivize a certain behavior is just so small. Like the potential is just like limitless.
Yeah, definitely. I think I saw something on the internet before, like, does Grab or Shopee accept crypto already?
It's Grab in Singapore, actually. So not yet in Thailand, but hopefully soon. Like,
okay.
It would be a miracle of Grab in Thailand, which will accept crypto before DefCon, but like, one can only hope, right?
Oh, yeah. That would be so convenient. So how does, like, how does people get access to crypto right now in Thailand?
So mostly through local exchanges. Like so for crypto natives, we use local exchanges to on and off ramp, and then we would either trade on chain or we would also trade on local like global exchanges, right?
Yeah.
And for retail people, like when I say retail, I mean the most traditional sense of the word. People would just trade on like local exchanges against Thai baht pairs. So the likes of Bitcup, Binance, Thailand, these are where people are currently trading on. And for natives, like global exchanges, trading on chain, all that stuff.
So for like an average Joe in Thailand, it's quite easy to walk them through how to buy your first crypto on exchanges, right? Or is it like a really high barrier of entry?
Yeah, it is relatively easy. I think Thailand is really welcoming to crypto, like relative to other countries. Like when whenever you arrive into the Suvarnabhumi airport, which is the main airport in Thailand, you'll see all these billboards of crypto exchanges, right? And
Oh,
they'll say, okay, sign up to crypto and whatnot. And I think there is a lot. The process is really seamless. But if you're willing to obviously withdraw or deposit large amounts, there's a certain level of KYCs and like documents you have to submit, which is natural because there are regulations which govern and safeguards the investments of retail investors. So I think those are just like standard protocol. But in general, the process to be onboarded to crypto via these local exchanges are really easy, and I think that's how a lot of Thai users are being incentivized and onboarded into the crypto rabbit hole. First into localized exchanges, then they open their on-chain wallet, and then that's when the true adventure begins.
yeah, for sure. That's when the true speculating and some of the bad experiences happen.
Yeah, I think that's some of the memorable experiences. Not too sure if that's for better or worse, but I think that's something that a lot of Thai builders or Thai users are actually interested to actually try out because you don't actually see these sort of apps or like speculation of this nature in any other sector, right? So
Yeah,
it's quite interesting sector to people to come in and dabble.
that's true. That's true. And also, good information on like the airport billboard stuff. I think I was in Thailand last year and I haven't seen that. So you guys have made some new progress on that as well, like being more friendly, promoting crypto in Thailand. That's great to hear. And you mentioned previously this concept or thesis about super apps and onboarding consumers. One of my question is, this is more specific to Thailand. So when you're building either this huge consumer apps or some smaller gamings that you will want to acquire Thai users, what are some of the cultural differences or consumer behavior differences that you're seeing in the Thai market? Because you have both background in the UK and then also Thailand.
I can't really speak for the UK because I've only been there for 2 years, so the sample size is relatively small compared to my time here in Thailand.
Yeah.
But I think the key nuance to the targeting and onboarding Thai users is they actually have to tap into like the potential of the apps or things that people want people to try out. And I think this goes back to the barrier to entry or the barrier to adoption, right? Being relatively small, how you can incentivize people to try out new things at a relatively small expense or reward, which is arguably similar to the other countries in Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, Philippines, and others. But I think for Thailand, it's still very much a localized country. There's a lot of nuances you have to be mindful of when it comes to culture, regulations, and certain social values. Thai people are still receptive of gambling, albeit we are inherently like degens and gamblers. But when it comes to gambling apps, I think Thai people are a bit not necessarily receptive, but they're a bit mindful of like things which are related to gambling, especially if you are actually building or developing something related to that sector. So that is something to be mindful of. But in general, I think Thai people are really open. We're such an international country where we are open to pretty much anything, and I think that's where you will see like glimpses of the openness and the inclusiveness of Thailand as a country, having all these expats come together, all different cultures within the city, or even in Bangkok itself, to see how different parts of the cities are inhibited by certain countries, and they're formed their own communities, but at the same time they also gel well and it's seamless within like the local Thai communities nearby as well. So it's a pretty interesting and welcoming dynamic to see.
I think in terms of marketing a little bit more, maybe this doesn't have to be like related to Web3 at all. For example, like something like Grab or like a consumer app that people are using nowadays. Do people tend to use more, like influencer marketing now in Thailand, or you mentioned the billboard in the airport? What are some of the ways for people to do these app promotion and stuff in Thailand?
I think influencer marketing are really effective right now, especially micro influencer marketing. The Thai people in general are start to realize that most influencer posts are paid ads or are sponsored by certain brands, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is sort of like that trust is sort of lost in a sense, but I think people still do believe micro influencers, which could be influencers at smaller scale, or for example, your friend might have an Instagram account which has 10,000 followers, which arguably is a sort of an influencer, but it's not at the same scale as someone with 100 or even like 200,000 of followers, right? So I think like in general, people are still more open to try out new stuff when it comes to like friends' recommendations or people within their social circles. But just that the companies or the projects that they're looking to onboard more users have to be mindful of who are the key opinion leaders within these specific niches that you're looking to target. And that's the key nuance I would take away.
Got it. Is local presence important? So, for example, you see some of the apps in Western countries, they just became popular out of nowhere on the internet, right? They don't even have anything physical. But then, whereas you see some apps in emerging markets, they really have to put a heavy focus on being present in local, doing a lot of events, really have people see the product. Which ones do you think is more effective in Thailand?
I think there's no right or wrong answer, but I think the key here is to be really localized. And what I mean by that is you have to be embedded within the Thai culture. You have to understand the nuances, the slangs, the idioms people are using to actually gel within the local Thai culture. Otherwise, what you might end up is that people will feel like this is a foreign app and they're enforcing their cultures into Thailand, which isn't necessarily a positive connotation. So I think the key here is to understand Thai culture, to potentially hire a local person to help you understand how Thai marketing works, how Thai people actually talk to each other, what are the phrases that are popular at the moment. And Thailand is a unique country in the sense that there is sort of these slangs coming up by the day, and then there's sort of these memes that are always populating. I think you see the prevalence of Thai soft power and the most recent Mudeng meme, right? The mini pig that has been popular all over the world. I think that speaks volumes on how Thai soft power can actually spread. And being able to understand, grasp that at a timely manner is super important, especially for a company looking to do marketing among Thai users.
And for cultural stuff, is there something that you absolutely should not do?
I think in general, there's obviously Thailand is a democratic country, but there's also the monarchy as well. So I think that's something that people should be mindful of, to not obey by societal values and to be respectful to the monarchy and as well as elders. I think Thai society is still like a culture where we respect elders, and I think that is where there's a lot of homage and respect being not only paid to our teachers, the seniors within our lives, like our family, like our parents and whatnot. I think that's also a society value that people should be mindful of. And there's a couple of smaller nuances, but I think those are the two key ones, which are sort of things you shouldn't try and violate or touch. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very helpful. My last question before we explore DevCon a little bit is there anything that you hope that the builder in Thailand or people that have an interest in the Thai market should be building right now? Just wishful thinking, anything you can think of.
Gotcha. That's actually an interesting question. I think what I want, like, this is not necessarily a project idea, but more or less like a broad aim that we are pushing towards. Like, we want Thai builders or even like expat builders in Thailand to think bigger, right? And what I mean by that is instead of targeting apps which are suited towards local users here in Thailand, you should actually think about building global Web3 apps on global machines, targeting global users. There's this mindset where people still utilize Web2 growth frameworks with Web3 apps in the sense that they try to target localized geographies and replicate models which has worked in other chains into like more localized environments, which doesn't really work because of how global Web3 is. So I would definitely encourage Thai builders to actually think bigger, see how you can actually target or penetrate gaps within each niches or within each sector that you're playing in. And just don't be afraid to try and tackle all these global issues. I think more often than not, you'll find that there are competitors, of course, but I think that's where the fun begins, right? That's where you can actually try and compete and use motivation from other competitors to actually push yourselves forward. And I think we can actually, I think what people will actually find out is that you can actually go further and you realize, and Web3 is an industry where the playing field is arguably equal, right? Unlike other industries where there's sort of hoops you have to jump through, there's constraints and resources and whatnot. But when it comes to Web3, everyone is sort of equal. And we're sort of at equal footing, and it's just more a matter of how you can actually put yourselves out there, how you can leverage the resources that you have, how you can penetrate and develop new ideas to target segments which hasn't been tapped in certain chains or certain sectors. I think it's all about the effort that you put in the research and also the go-to-market strategies to how to try to implement. So all in all, I would encourage Thai builders to actually think bigger, and I think that's where we are trying to help them to succeed in that.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned the global nature of crypto, and then also, for example, the gamification thesis that you mentioned. Just build a game that people like to play, and then also, I think this is universal as well. You see some of the great games of all time. It's global. Like everyone loves it. It doesn't really matter which region you're in, right? But then you can also have that you can also have that local pieces, or like, a twist or something that's specific to that market in terms of like promotion, marketing, and adapt to the culture and consumer behaviors and stuff. Yeah, that's actually really inspirational, and I think DefCon is a great opportunity, right, for a lot of the builders to really come to see what are the opportunities, what are people thinking about. This is such a special time for Thailand and also Bangkok to host DefCon. For people that visit Thailand the first time, is there any recommendations you want to give them? And also another question is for builders that are coming to DefCon, for you guys, of course, Thai Build and Symmetry, what are some other local communities that people should be aware of or to get connected with?
Gotcha. So my number one recommendation is to be open and try out new stuff. There's loads of new experiences which I'm sure you haven't tried out before. Like, for example, riding on motorbikes during rush hours, trying out different types of Thai food, because like I think Thai food in central Thailand and northern Thailand is very different. So you should actually try out different types of Thai food that is also like a cultural experience of its own. Then also there's cultural places you can visit, these interesting like historical sites that you can actually immerse yourself into a culture if you're a historical person. At the same time, like Thailand or even like Bangkok especially is sort of a hub for like global entertainment. So there's obviously things that you can obviously expect from a modern city, so that you got that going with you. But all in all, I think there's a lot of experiences which you can try out, and I hope that Bangkok and having DefCon here is such an honor, and I hope people will be able to try out new experiences from Bangkok and leave with a positive, lasting impression. And as for the second part of your question, apart from like obviously Thai and Symmetry, there are also other global builders which I'm proud to actually stand among these like giants in Web3. I think there is local communities like Eat Pad Thai who's been doing a tremendous job like supporting the university students and developers. So they've been running boot camps, they've been working with other Eat societies, Eat communities all across Asia. So shout out to them. There's also global builders and operators working at either like their own companies, like Tasha launching Stella, which at the previous peak of the bull market cycle was able to accumulate $2 billion worth of AUM. And then there's also people who are working on global VCs, like Paul from Pantera. He's also Thai. Catherine at Paradigm, Nate at 1KX. We have all these people who are actually Thai, and they're working and representing Thailand at the global stage, at the forefront of Web3. So I'm extremely proud to have these people representing the country, and hopefully we can help support and nurture more of us to be standing on the shoulder of these giants.
I really hope, for you and then also people that come to Thailand for DevCon really have a fruitful experience. Everyone's going to enjoy Thailand. But like, I can't believe you mentioned the motorbike experience during rush hour. Like you can't even move like on the motorbike. The traffic jam is so bad.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things people should expect. Actually, I forgot to mention is the traffic. And what people forget to realize is that Thailand is not really similar to Singapore or Vietnam, where you can actually get by during rush hours. But it's actually rush hour. It's New York level traffic, so you cannot actually get around. So that's one of the things you should be mindful of. Like when you're planning your day, whether it's during DefCon week or even before or after, you should actually be mindful of rush hours. Plan your day ahead. Like be ready to hop down from your cab and go into public transportation, whether it's the SkyTrain or whether it's the underground train, or even try out the motorbikes. Like I think for the more advantageous crowd out there, I would recommend you to try it at least once, but maybe once is more than enough for some. So
yeah, I think for me, like someone like less adventurous, you can also call a motorbike and Grab, right? And you just kind of like ride it. Yeah, that's something that was a really new experience for me too, which was fun. Yeah,
it is fun, but it might be intimidating for some people. But I think we still recommend you to try it, because if you're traveling in DefCon week to multiple side events, and the best bet for you to get around is through motorbikes. And as you said, the most convenient way to do it is to Grab. So just book it and to wait for them to arrive and hold on for your dear life and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, for sure. And what are you guys doing for DevCon? Any specific plans or events?
So we're hosting a couple of different side events, but the flagship one that we're hosting is a founder-centric conference called Thailand Web3 Conference. So we're doing this because we see that, so there's two folds of rationale with which we're organizing this, right? So the first is DefCon will obviously be more technical, and typical Asian conferences are more investor/VC oriented. So we want to strike like a middle ground where it's the dialogue is still pretty much revolves around founders and builders, but it's not too technical that like builders and non-technical people can not actually take something away. So that's the core focus of a founder-centric conference. And the second part to that is, I think we have reached a point as an industry that we have too many side events. Like at the initial stages, it was still ROI positive for companies and projects to start their own side event, because the scale of audience was still small. So it was positive in terms of ROI for you to spin up your own side event and pull people in, because you can arguably get like a good turnout with some quality people there, right?
Yeah.
But the most recent token 2049, but also Korean Blockchain Week, I think we have witnessed side event at such a scale where you could actually be going to the right events, but you could be going to them at the wrong time. So you might be going to the right events where all the like the good people are going, but you might just barely missed out. So our pitch is that why don't bring everyone into one roof and just make conferences great again. So we're being especially curated in everything that we do, like from speakers, sponsors, booth exhibitors, or like partners that we're working with in general. So we're co-hosting this with like 4 key partners, and they'll be sort of track owners for the 4 teams that we're trying to curate. So we have Consensus curating the roll-ups team. We have Maven 11 heading up the modular track. We have 1KX overseeing the abstraction team, and EVG, like Everest Ventures Group, who's also overseeing the consumer team. So these are the 4 key teams that we're working on for this particular conference right now. It'll be on the 13th and 14th at a place called Sanya Midtown, which is 10 minutes away from DefCon.
Mm.
So the convenient thing about that is the building sits directly on top of the underground station. So what you can do is you can pop down the underground station, 10 minutes out, then you're back in DefCon again without actually going outdoors and breaking a sweat. So that's the beauty of it.
Nice, nice, nice. That's actually awesome. Really looking forward to the events and also have a great time during DevCon. And I hope, you guys meet a lot of interesting people, a lot of great ideas. And yeah, thank you so much for joining this podcast too.
Yeah, I think it's just such a unique dynamic where a lot of Thai users are willing to try out new stuff. They're willing to be risk taking at times where they actually see the risk and reward ratio, which makes sense. And I think more often than not, like people tends to skew that into their favor. So we end up like trying to gambling and jumping headfirst into all these new applications, whether in Web2 or Web3, which can be a benefit and also a detriment to users at the same time. So
Yeah,
I think it's overall an interesting user demographic for people to talk to.
for sure, for sure. Because in my impression, like this might be, I don't know, like very ignorant, but because I think most of the people in Thailand, they believe in Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about like Buddhism and gambling, like it's kind of like the anti-Buddhism belief. I don't know, like maybe I'm just being ignorant.
Yeah, technically you're correct, but I think there's like balances in life, right? Where you have sort of the light, which is Buddhism, and you have sort of the fun in life, which is sort of speculation, gambling, wealth creation, if that makes sense. So then these two kind of comes in hand, and I think we're all, at the end of the day we're all humans, right? And like I think it's not entirely fair to like find faults in humans. I think we're just here to like have fun and just enjoy life because you get to live it once. So why not?
Yeah, YOLO.
Yeah, I mean it's a weird way to end it, but I think it is what it is. I think that encompasses like how Thai people lives life, and I think that is why we're so open to new experiences. We're open to meeting new people, embracing new cultures, and that is a beauty of the country in its own way.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I love the ending.
Thank you so much, Jojo, for having me.